Hello and welcome to Antinatalism this week. Last week on 9th of April, it was an International Antinatalist Day, and as a celebration of that day, Lawrence did a live Q&A. I don't know what happened to his aspect ratio. It is a vertical video, but a very good live session of Q&A. Maybe I missed the part of aspect ratio, but that was one about the International Antinatalist Day. And as you can see on the screen, the other one was by Bengali antinatalists, where they had an award ceremony awarding, I think, like 12 couples who are child free and antinatalist as a celebration of International Antinatalist Day. We will talk about the events that are happening this week, but before that, just a quick mention of a video that Tofu Dog had made. She was doing a sort of an antinatalist outreach or street activism on the street, talking to a student about the topic of antinatalism, about why we should or should not have kids. And it was a good, nice back and forth question and answer conversation, calm conversation, interesting to listen to. So good work. We have already talked about this event, antinatalism versus pronatalism. Is depopulation good or bad? But this is just a reminder that that event is now coming up. It is going to be on 15th of April, 2:30 a.m. my time, so I'm not sure if I would be able to join. I would try and access the recording later on. Here is a link to the online event. If you register, you will also get this link. And interestingly, they have also put up a comprehensive write-up of what they are going to discuss in the event. The write-up can be accessed here. The link is also there on the meetup page as well. And you can see this is like a 29-page write-up including many different topics around antinatalism and pronatalism, including, as you can see here, David Benatar's asymmetry, Magnuson on David Benatar, and other topics. I won't go into each and every page of these 29-page write-up. You can go through it, but by the looks of it, this sounds very interesting. On top of that, the host has made a new comment here, and the essence of that comment is we would be discussing the factual data first, that there is the population might be now decreasing, or fertility rates are decreasing, and eventually the population will decrease. What is the contribution of philosophical arguments of antinatalism towards this, if at all there is? And then he says that we will conclude by considering possible paths of anthropogenic human extinction, which is human extinction, those about which there are philosophically interesting points to be made. So it looks like this is going to be a very interesting event. Those who can join, I would encourage them to go and join. I would also try and access the recordings later on. Nirmod, who is an Israeli antinatalist who does street activism in Israel, is doing a European tour, doing street activism in different European cities, which starts on 15th of April. As you can see on the screen here, he's preparing for that tour. What I've done is right now just taken up the section of the tour that will happen this week, from this episode of Antinatalism this week until the next one. So the tour starts on 15th of April from Madrid in Spain. Then he goes to Valencia on 17th, Barcelona on 18th and 19th of April, and then moves on to France, Toulouse, I think I'm saying that name wrong of that city, on 20th of April, and then Lyon on 21st of April. So best of luck to Nirmod. Hope everything goes good and fine as per the plan. I would encourage everybody in those respective cities to try and help Nirmod as much as you can. Lawrence has tweeted that he probably is organizing an antinatalist meetup in Vienna, Austria on 4th of May in a location called Wavy Restaurant, and you can see the tweet here, antinatalist meetup in Vienna. I don't know if this coincides with when Nirmod will be in Vienna. Maybe that's how he wants to coincide it, but the event is they want to do some kind of street activism, then some food and some social activities. So absolutely, if you happen to be in Vienna or want to go to Vienna on 4th of May, I encourage you to go and join the event. Mary Huot was a French feminist, animal rights activist, and an early antinatalist. Lawrence is going to make a video talking about Mary Huot's beliefs in antinatalism, and also a lecture that she gave in 1892 that caused a large media reaction. There was a YouTube short published called as the Natalism Spectrum, and it tried to cover the entire spectrum from a staunch pro-natalist position to a staunch anti-natalist position and everything in between. I think the goal was to very quickly cover the entire spectrum, but while doing so, I think they did some very large mistakes. So for example, here They said that antinatalism is centered around abortion. That is the impression you get when you hear or look at this YouTube short. Now, why am I saying this? This is because this is posted by a very big channel. It has like 506,000 subscribers, and it is then very easy that people get a wrong impression of antinatalism. Last week, we saw an interview of Cansu Özge Özmen on Exploring Antinatalism podcast, and I'm sorry I'm still saying her name wrong, but she is the translator of David Benatar's Better Never to Have Been and The Human Predicament. This week there was another interview of hers in Turkish language. It's a text-based interview, as you can see on the screen, and the interviewer is Taner Bater. And even though the interview was in Turkish, I translated it back into English so I could read it, and this is the interview as you can see. One of the interesting questions in the interview was, while we are on the subject of veganism, what are your views on aphilism? Don't you think the idea of extinguishing not only humans but all sentient beings is a bit extreme? To which Jansu replies, frankly, I am a fan of aphilism and professor, and I think this is some mistake in translation. It doesn't sound congruent. But then she says, I cannot understand what the difference is between antinatalism as formulated by Benatar. The distinction that is being made, I think, is that antinatalism leads one to conclude that humans must be extinct, but aphilism leads one to conclude that all sentient species must be extinct. But Professor Benatar also speaks many times about suffering of animals and how it would be better for them if they disappeared. And here she is spot on. There is Within antinatalism, there is a view that sentiocentric antinatalism, which is a view that all sentient beings are included in that. Coming into sentient existence itself is bad for the being who is coming into existence, is the view of sentiocentric antinatalism. And as per this, all sentient beings are included. So there is no reason to have another term for this. As per her, and I completely agree with her, sentiocentric antinatalism is all what we need. And Benatar is for sentiocentric antinatalism. I don't think he restricts his antinatalism only to the boundaries of humans. Anyway, the interview was very interesting overall. It's not a very long interview, but very interesting interview. There was a podcast interviewing Shweta Ramkumar. Shweta Ramkumar is a person of Indian origin who migrated to Australia, and she does child-free advocacy over there. She sort of built a child-free community over there. She was also on Antinatalism conference last year, organized by Antinatalist advocacy organization. And in this podcast, she was interviewed by Paulette Erato, who is also child-free. So as expected, the main topic was child-free. It is a podcast of about 43 minutes long, and they talk about topics about child-free, but within that, Shweta touches on antinatalism, mainly from minutes 16 to 20 and 25 to 27. Shweta talks about certain aspects of antinatalism. A few days ago, Elon Musk had tweeted saying the real battle is between the extinctionists and the humanists, implying that Elon Musk is on the humanist side. He is on team human. Emil Torres, who has done extensive work on the subject of human extinction, has written a new article with the title Team Human versus Team Posthuman. Which side are you on truthdig.com. In that, they evaluate different sides about extinction and humanist side. They talk about rich entrepreneurs and intellectuals like Google's founder Larry Page, who also owns a company called DeepMind, who is working on developing intelligent machines. People like these have a vision that if we can develop artificial intelligence, artificial general intelligence, and intelligence machines in general, that should be a welcome step, even if it poses a risk that those machines can take over our world and can marginalize the Homo sapiens that we know today. Emil Torres also mentions people like Nick Bostrom, who are long-termist and transhumanists, and also other people who are of the opinion that development of such intelligent machines should not only be welcomed, but should be accelerated. We should do that as soon as possible so that we can realize our full potential to occupy other worlds, not just this world, but other planets, the entire solar system, the galaxy. I think this is a teenage fantasy got into the hands of adults or so-called intellectual adults, and also unhealthy obsession with consciousness. All these people are saying that we have to have conscious beings occupying as much of the universe as we can. That is how we realize our actual potential, without specifying why we should do that and what that consciousness actually means. Because as it is, we don't really know what human consciousness or the consciousness in sentient beings that exist today is. But in this state, we are saying that we should develop conscious machines who should occupy the entire solar system or universe or whatever your fantasy is. Now, the problem with this is that if that really happens, and this doesn't sound so much like a science fiction, given that people like Larry Page and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs are actually working towards in this direction. So if these machines are developed, which are way more intelligent than humans, I'm not going to the place where whether they're sentient or not. That's a different aspect altogether, and these people don't seem to care about that at all anyway. But if these are developed, which are very intelligent machines, what would happen? They would take over our world, and there could be two scenarios. We, the Homo sapiens, are marginalized, and they treat us like we treat the other animals today, like we are put in pens and made to use, or marginalized to some minority, used as pets, or even worse, used for something else. Or we just go extinct. We are no more. Homo sapiens are no more, and these machines are actually what now our progeny is. So what these people like Larry Page and Elon Musk and everybody else, what they are doing is they are saying they are on the side of team human. They are not on the side of extinctionists, but they're disguising what human means. They are redefining humans as a members of Homo sapiens. They're saying that's just not it. But when we develop these machines and these machines take over the world, that is also human, because they are kind of our children. They are our successors. So they redefine that, and under this disguise, they are actually promoting extinction of Homo sapiens. The traditional view of extinction is all Homo sapiens disappear. So MLP Torres's point in this article is that these people, even though they're saying they are on the humanist side, they are actually on the extinctionist side. They just redefine what human is. Now, what has this to do with antinatalism? This touches about antinatalism in one particular way, although indirect way. In the article, MLP Torres also talks about two other groups. One they call as philosophical pessimists, and other as radical environmentalists. Philosophical pessimists are those who don't want to create new children and are okay if, as a consequence, human beings, Homo sapiens, go extinct. Or maybe some philosophical pessimists even actually actively want Homo sapiens to go extinct because considering human suffering at the center of everything. Radical environmentalists, on the other hand, keep the biosphere at the center and the damage we as humans cause to that biosphere, and therefore they want humans to go extinct. In both cases, human extinction is what either the consequence or the goal of these groups. MLP Torres says that these groups are different than these extinctionist people, different in two ways. One is these people who are extinctionists, these Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and rich intellectuals, they disguise themselves as humanists. That's one. But other point is that philosophical pessimists, within which antinatalists could be said as one of the groups, and radical environmentalists want human extinction, if at all they want that to happen voluntarily. They give a lot of weight to autonomy, to reproductive rights and things like that. Whereas these intellectual entrepreneurs don't care about that. Imagine that these machines are really developed. Do you think that if humans have to go extinct because of that, that would happen voluntarily? It's easy to imagine that there would be a lot of violence and a lot of people would be killed, and the extinction happens involuntarily against at least some human beings. That is the main difference MLP Torres is trying to point out between these so-called humanists who are actually extinctionists against antinatalists, philosophical pessimists, and radical environmentalists. So overall, a good read, nice article. It's quite a comprehensive article. Again, MLP Torres writes comprehensively. So good read, interesting article. There was a paper published in the South African Journal of Philosophy with the title Climate Change and Antinatalism Between the Horrible and the Unthinkable. It is written by Konrad, Szocik and Matti Häyry, and I'm sorry I'm saying those names wrong. The paper has been written a few months ago, but it was only published on 8th of April 2024. And of course, looking at the title, we can know that the paper is talking about the relationship between climate change and antinatalism. The paper says that it is now clear that climate change is going to be something to worry about, and it talks about two different scenarios which could result from this crisis of climate change. In one scenario, we could have a lot of people, vast amount of people, left in abject poverty and going through a lot of suffering, living on bare minimum as a result of all of these problems. There would be a lot of inequality. Some rich people would be there, but a vast amount of people would be living in large amounts of poverty. That is one scenario. In another scenario, all these poor people are actually dead. They can't even survive. So, because they are not there, the inequality might not be as pronounced, but they're just dead. And both of these scenarios, the paper says, are horrible scenarios. And then it tries to brainstorm on what possible solutions could there be for these horrible scenarios. So it talks about three possible solutions for these scenarios. In one scenario, they talk about extinctionist antinatalism, meaning everybody just should stop reproducing, stop having children, and humans go extinct. So if there are no humans left, there would be no suffering humans left as well. And that way we can reduce the population, we can also reduce all or eliminate all of the suffering. That is one solution, but the authors say that this is for many people an unthinkable solution, and they go into great detail of why it could be unthinkable. There are more than one reasons why it could be unthinkable solution. The other solution is procreative beneficence is what they talk about. The meaning of procreative beneficence is that given an option, if you have an option to have many children, you should choose the child of those many children which would have the best capability to survive in whatever environment it is going to survive and thrive in it. So for example, now we're going through climate change. We should select the child which has the best capability to live and thrive in this changing climate. Now this idea is on an individual level, and it originated from the idea of the embryo selection in technologies like IVF. But the authors say that this can also be applied on a population level to control the population below a certain level so that we can solve this problem of climate change. Now, they also say that this is an unfair solution because ultimately eugenicistic forces and racist forces would come in, and ultimately it will result in a very unfair and unequal world and would actually increase the suffering instead of eliminate suffering, which they want to do. So the third solution then is reproductive rights or reproductive autonomy. And what they observe is that as people have more reproductive autonomy, especially women, there is a correlation that as many women have more control over their own fertility, access to contraception, access to better education, then fertility also gradually decreases and eventually population decreases. So this could be one solution. But again, the current existing inequalities in the world as it is very unequal. So the women who are living in the poorer countries and not so affluent countries would probably not get access to these things to start with. And so we would still end up in a very unfair world. So this solution is also very unfair. So at the end, what they say is that we are caught up between the horrible and the unthinkable solution. And they imply that we should think of some variant of the extinctionist antinatalist position to come out of it. So we talked about the horrible scenarios, but why are we talking about horrible scenarios in the first place? So there is another paper, Why It Is Rational to Expect the Horrible, The Future of Humanity and Climate Change, by the same authors, Konrad and Matti. And both these papers are behind the paywall, but what I'm told is you can send a private message to Matti to get a copy of both papers. First 50 people to do so will get a copy for free. I will include the link in the description to contact Matti. Lenny is someone who I would call as antinatalist archaeologist because he's working on historical figures in antinatalism. Somebody like Karim Akerma would also fit this bill. Lenny has a new blog going on about his work and documenting his work about this antinatalist archaeology research. In the latest blog post, he's talking about somebody called Norbert Grabowski. Norbert Grabowski, as you can see on the screen, lived from 1861 to 1922, and he was an antinatalist, but he was also against sex. He promoted sexual abstinence along with antinatalism. In this blog post, Lenny describes different quotes and the works and his position, Grabowski's position about antinatalism. We can look at a few couple of sentences to confirm his antinatalist convictions. So, for example, he says the complete solution to the social question will only be achieved with the extinction of mankind. That is very strong antinatalist sentiment. Then he says, but the mature person may not, on the basis of continued existence, grant himself the right to bring offspring into this world at will. So, yeah, quite strong antinatalist sentiments there. But these are just selected quotes I am taking from this blog post. But Norbert Grabowski has written extensively on these subjects. He published from two publishing houses. One was Max 4, I think I'm saying that name wrong again, but that is a publishing house from where Koenig also used to publish, and we'll talk about Koenig later on. And what Lenny has done is listed out all the books that Grabowski published through this publishing house. They're all mainly in German, but it is quite a long list of books, as you can see. The second publishing house is Mark Lemstead, and through this publishing house, Grabowski published like 49 publications. Quite an extensive list, and Lenny has listed all of them together here. Along with, I think there is also a list of references for further reading. So this is quite a comprehensive work as it is, but what Lenny is saying is because he is focusing on Koenig, if anybody else wants to take this up and research more into Grabowski's work, they are more than welcome. Talking of Koenig, Lenny is, as I said, doing research in Koenig. In fact, there was also a video of Lawrence, Karim Akerma and Lenny together in person, specifically about Koenig and his work about antinatalism. Now, there's a book by Koenig called Neo-Nihilismus, and by the way, Koenig is a pseudonym. We don't know who the actual person was. And this Neo-Nihilismus is not actually about nihilism, but about antinatalism of Koenig. The problem with this book is that this book is, it's not that it's only in German and somebody who doesn't understand German would not be able to understand that, but the book is written in another script called Fraktur or Gothic script, which even today's modern German have trouble understanding. So what Lenny has done is he has gone and found out at two places where this old book was available, went there, scanned them, made digital copies of those, and then worked hard on converting from that Gothic or Fraktur script into Roman script, still in German language, so you still need to know German to understand this, but at least now it can be translated into other languages by whoever knows German as it is spoken and written today. So absolutely good work, and in this blog post, Lenny explains his story about how he went to different libraries, how he did the scans, what happened, interesting story altogether. And the work he has done, he has uploaded all of that on archive.org. So for example, if you see here, this is the original Neo-Nihilismus book which Lenny has scanned, and you can see this is quite a hard to read script, Gothic script this is. He has converted that into Roman script, and this is his conversion. I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and you can see now it is readable Roman script. All of this is available on archive.org. All of this work that Lenny has been doing is available on this common link on archive.org. I will include this link in the description also. So very good work by Lenny.